100% 50-50. I optimize all my opinions.
If you're not aware, this is an addition of sorts to my main channel video, A Tribute to Underscores, where I dissect the discography of Underscores for about an hour and a half. This video will focus on the 4 tracks released in the director's cut version of Wallsocket, which are 4 songs released after my original video. So this serves as a completion of sorts to all the content I was talking about in my previous video on my main channel. So if you plan on watching this video, I highly recommend watching my original one first if you haven't seen it already. So it's linked in the description. The director's cut was a necessary addition to the Wallsocket album. As though none of these tracks fit well into the linear narrative heard on the original album, they are still of great quality, being just as good, if not better, than some of the tracks on the original track list. So in this video, I will be dissecting these 4 tracks in a similar fashion to how I did in my A Tribute to Underscores video. To begin, I'd like to analyze this fantastic cover art by Jordan Sullivan, as it has tons of little references to the album. Obviously, there's the big Wallsocket horseshoe in the background. Then if you examine the foreground, you'll notice the 3 girls, Sarah, aka Old Money Bitch, Mara, and Sunny. Behind them you can see a dog, referencing track 10 of Wallsocket, 77 Dog Years, Joshua Domingo, who is Sunny's father and the star of the opening track, Cops and Robbers, and April in a pickup truck leaning over the side grabbing for something. The Genius annotation of the cover pointed out how it may be a reference to when April's hat flew off in the album release stream, something I would have never caught myself. Then in front of all of it is this bald guy in a tank top, who is most likely this creepy guy that's in the background of the Wallsocket music videos. In my mind, My Guy acts as an addition to the opening track of Wallsocket, Cops and Robbers. This is because while Cops and Robbers tells the story of the bank robbery from the perspective of the robber, Joshua Domingo, My Guy presents this robbery from the perspective of 3 citizens of the town. Specifically the citizens Darlene, who is a mom of Wallsocket, Jack, who is the military kid and also Sarah's friend, most prominently featured on the track Shoot to Kill, Kill Your Darlings, and lastly Sarah, who is the Old Money Bitch. The first verse of this track is from Darlene, who provides arguably the least amount of value to the song. She's portrayed just as you'd expect a small town mom to be, very judgy and always gossiping about what's happening around the town. Darlene opens her verse talking shit about someone's husband, calling him a pushover. She then promptly mentioned the robbery, claiming to have a weird feeling about Joshua Domingo from the start. She then immediately goes back to gossiping about other moms. Darlene ends her verse by saying the local Wallsocket dermatologist does a poor job, cleverly transitioning into the chorus where she says the moms that got bad cosmetics done need to see her dermatologist. The second verse is delivered by the military kid, Jack. This is probably my favorite part of the entire song, as Sarah and his relationship is one of my favorite parts of the Wallsocket story. Anyways, Jack opens his verse admitting to killing a horse at the age of 12. Now because of that mistake he made as a kid, the whole town resents him. This pattern of the town ostracizing people can be seen with the 3 girls, Mara for her stalking, Sarah for her ultra-wealthy parents, and Sunny for her criminal father. From here, he claimed to have suspected the robbery for ages now, surprised no one else saw it coming. After this, he talks more about himself, revealing insecurity in himself, attempting to defend himself, saying he doesn't blindly follow his ideals, not just believing everything he sees that justifies beliefs. This is in response to his passionate pro-military stance. His verse is then closed recalling his friend telling him he needs therapy. This line most vividly displays that he has issues. This verse really shines light on Jack's obsession with violence and joining the military, seeing it as his only option due to how dark of a place he is in mentally. Sarah then has a much kinder perspective to the robbery, expressing how she can't imagine how the family is managing such a disastrous betrayal. The rest of Sarah's verse is about her relationship with Jack, talking about how her sister says Jack will never grow from the violence-obsessed boy he is, and calls Sarah an apologist for how sympathetically she treats Jack. In response to this, Sarah claims Jack to be a lot more than what is seen by the town, having an understanding of him and why he's made the decisions he's made.
Northwest zombie girl, put the pills under her tongue. Northwest zombie girl, and they got you all fixed up.
Northwest Zombie Girl is the second track heard on the director's cut of Wallsocket, and this track follows Old Money Bitch, aka Sarah. On this track, Sarah talks about a girl she read about who had a chemically induced emotional transformation, most likely the work of Secretariat, and how she desires something similar. The title, Northwest Zombie Girl, implies this emotional transformation mellowed out this girl, making her extremely complacent, with her only being the husk of a person left. The track begins with a playful chant that sounds like something you'd hear at a summer camp. From here, Sarah begins talking about her struggle attempting to blend in as a normal citizen in Wallsocket, explaining that she tries to have extremely average opinions as to not stand out, beginning to reveal why Sarah wants to be like Northwest Zombie Girl. If she was as complacent and hollow as the zombie girl, she'd blend in perfectly and no one would pay attention to her past. After this, Sarah talks about how her family legacy haunts her, holding a disdain for her resemblance to her father. Sarah plays down her struggle in the refrain, acknowledging that though she is ostracized for her wealthy family, that extreme wealth does come with innate privilege. This makes any problem she has lesser than anyone else's. At least that's how she feels about it. Sarah talks more about the impacts her family's actions have had on her in the second verse, detailing that she had paid to have her identity changed as to completely remove herself from her family. Despite this, she still feels responsible for her family's actions. This point is driven home in the next two lines.
I'm over people who hoard what they've taken. How do I end what someone else started?
The bridge then speaks about the zombie girl, revealing that her chemically induced emotional transformation hadn't truly worked. After a month of the treatment, she ran away and cried about very minor things, completely contradicting the lack of emotion the treatment was supposed to give her. The second half of the bridge continues to talk about Sarah, explaining that she's really trying to pay retribution for her family's actions. There's then the line,
And I've severed my body and head.
which is Sarah saying that though her physical body has no responsibility for the actions of her family, she still has a guilty mind, feeling responsible for something she had no part in, therefore completely separating the actions of her body from the thoughts of her mind. The bridge, and with that the track, is closed with Sarah expressing her hopelessness for this problem. No matter how much money is thrown at it, she cannot feel content. CCTV is the longest underscore song to date, clocking in at a second over 8 minutes. This track is from the perspective of a supposedly new character to the story of Wallsocket, that character being Ashley, daughter of Secretariat founder Jerry Bowman. This track talks about the last week of Ashley's life before she died in early death. CCTV is not just haunting, but truly terrifying, lyrically and instrumentally. Ashley is a broken and paranoid girl, destroyed by how much hurt she's been subjected to. The first two verses build that character. In the first verse, Ashley describes how there's a man stalking her. The second verse continues this paranoid theme, with Ashley talking about how she thinks the CCTV cameras are watching her. She then goes on to detail this fort of sorts she's made out of paranoia that someone is coming for her. The track then bursts into an insane storm of sound, being like nothing I've ever heard before. The storm then calms, leading into the second verse that describes a disfigurement she experienced. This is most likely referring to experiment Secretariat did on her. Ashley then goes into a panic state due to what has become of her. She was subject to this experimentation as she is the daughter of the founder of Secretariat. Her father indoctrinated her into being complacent with the inhuman treatment she faced. There is then the line,
I'm drowning in your clothes and lying away.
The term lying in wait is a legal term meaning the act of hiding somewhere in anticipation of killing that person. My assumption is that this is Ashley hiding in her father's room, waiting for him to come in to kill him. She finally broke out of the chains that allowed her to be used. This verse is closed, solidifying her disdain of what she's become. CCTV approaches the suicide of Ashley, audibly recreating her last moments of existence. This tension is then released into a lone, soft guitar, representing the peace Ashley felt after taking her life. From here, the track builds again, paired with screams of agony. To me, this sequence of events represents the contradiction of physical pain with the mental peace Ashley felt when taking her own life. The outro closes the track with a bunch of spoken word lines played over each other, creating a scattered mess of thoughts that works perfectly as a conclusion to the character that is Ashley. There's two lines in this jumbled mess that stick out the most to me. I'm sorry you had to find me like that, in that sorry state. You changed jobs for me, but look at you now. This reveals that there was someone who truly did care about Ashley, and horrifically was the one to discover the aftermath of her suicide. To close off my analysis of this track, I'd like to propose the idea that Ashley is the Northwest Zombie Girl. This is for many reasons. Firstly, I find it very odd to think that April would introduce a random character for a single track on the deluxe of the album. Additionally, one who has no relation to past characters. Secondly, It would build on this yearning Sarah has to be like the Northwest Zombie Girl, as Ashley came from the very wealthy Jerry Bowman, similar to Sarah's wealthy background, giving her an even stronger relatability to the zombie girl if this were the case, admiring the release of death that Ashley had gotten. This would also make a lot of sense, as Sarah had a lot of suicidal tendencies throughout Wallsocket. Finally, the zombie girl's chemically induced emotional transformation was almost definitely the work of Secretariat, and Ashley's damaged state was caused by the work of Secretariat. Boldly following CCTV is Stupid Can't Run From the Urge, which is probably Underscore's most upbeat song to date, following one of her darkest. Along with this, Stupid Can't Run From the Urge closes the director's cut, and with that, the world of Wallsocket as a whole. This track talks about Sunny's life after the events of Wallsocket. This song is not the most lyrically dense, so with that, its analysis will be quite brief in comparison to earlier tracks. Going line by line for this track is quite redundant, so I'm just going to cover general themes. Stupid Can't Run From the Urge begins with a verse describing how Sunny has been traveling the states, partying all the time, only to feel this sense of emptiness. As though Sunny is doing lots, she's still very lost in what she truly wants out of life. From here, the pre-chorus talks about how she's considering going back to her hometown of Wallsocket in a search of something more, referring to Wallsocket as if the town was a toxic ex trying to pull her back. The chorus goes on to playfully explain that no matter what Sunny does, she feels hopeless in escaping the urge to return to Wallsocket. The track goes on to pretty much run through the same idea once again. I want to mention that my brief attention to this track is not meant to play down the quality of it. Stupid Can't Run From the Urge is an unbelievably catchy song, paired with intriguing production that I simply cannot get enough of. The song is still lyrically efficient, just stylistically different from the rest of Wallsocket. I'm so glad we got this collection of Wallsocket B-sides. These are all incredible tracks that do nothing but make the masterpiece that is Wallsocket somehow even greater. I cannot imagine where April will take her career from here, but I'm so excited as creating a project like this so early in a career is mind-blowing. Also, if you haven't watched my original A Tribute to Underscores video, I heavily recommend doing that if you like this, because it's basically just like an hour-and-a-half version of what you see here. Also, subscribe for videos like this every Wednesday. On top of that, I have a Twitter linked in my description where I post non-stop bangers along with updates on the videos I'm working on.